Hello everyone, this is Tom Rowe, Product Evangelist for CentreStack. Welcome to another CentreStack tutorial. Well, today I'm going to look at the Management Console. Okay, so here I am. I'm about to log into Acme Systems. Now, generally what would happen is a user would have their system, whether it be at the office or at home, and they need to get access to the files, the team folders, etc. that are being shared from the server. Well, they would go ahead and log in. And they'd log into the web portal using the credentials that were given to them by the tenant manager. And once they logged in under the user icon, they would be able to download and install desktop or server clients. Now inside here, if they were using a Windows system, they would choose their OS type and hit go, and then an MSI would download, and they could open that and run it, and it would install the Windows client on their machine. Now I've already installed the Windows client, and this is what it looks like when it's running. You can see that user 1 is signed in, and the Management Console can be accessed in several ways. There's this gear button or icon here, which if I click that will open the Management Console in a web page in the default browser, and this gives me access to my device information as well as these items under this menu. Another way to access this client is to go through a typical Windows Explorer folder. And here I am browsing to my M drive, and that's just the same way you would access any drive on your system. You can access the files and folders that are being shared from the server. And I have, let's see, I have a documents folder in here, and I've got a couple of Word documents that I've put into that folder. The Client Management Console gives you access to a lot of different things. And an example of that would be locked files and pending check-ins. Now if I go to my locked files, I see that user 1, that's this user here, has a document, user1 document.docx is locked, and it was locked 2 hours ago. Now if we go to document 1 and I right click it, I get a context-sensitive menu that shows me that it is currently locked because the only option for locking is to unlock it. Now, in order to set that, all I did was right-click on it and click the lock button. Another way to lock a document would be to be editing it. So if I were editing a document, like this document 2, and here it is. I'm modifying it. Now if I look at my console, I hit refresh, I see that now that document is also locked. This one is locked because I'm editing it. The other one is locked because I manually locked it using the right-click context-sensitive menu. Now this is me, the user, accessing my console. The console can also be accessed by the tenant manager. I'm going to demonstrate that by looking at this from another browser so that I can pretend to be a second user on a different system. So I'm going to log in as Acme admin. That's the administrator for this tenant. And here I'm looking at my folders. I go to my dashboard, and under my dashboard I go to users, and here I could see user 1, and if I use this menu here I can manage this user. I could go to device list, and I could go to the device list, and I could see that user 1 is got a Windows client that I would like to see what's going on with that. So I can go to the manage icon here, and so now I'm managing the user's device from another system remotely. I can go into the locked files option, and I can see the files that are locked. and if for some reason that user is incapable of unlocking that file so that other users can get access to it, then I can unlock it from here. So there's document 2 is locked because it's open. Document 1 is locked because it's, see, 2 is dynamic and 1 is permanent. Now, I can just let the user know I need you to close the document because someone else needs access to it. And so that user closes the document, usually at like up to 30 seconds. Okay, so that went away, and I know that that document is now available for other users to access and edit. So there's another option here called pending check-ins. Now, I could see that that document is also located under pending check-ins. So I know that this is not a document that's just open. This document has been checked out. And so I can, if that user is unavailable to check it back in, then I can force the check-in right here. Basically giving other users access to the document when before we would have had to have logged in on that device and checked it in manually. So that's just one quick use of the console. Let me show you another way to access it. So we can refresh this. This is probably gone. There we go. We can go to pending check-ins. There's nothing under there as well. Okay, so now here I am. If I want to get to my local console on the client, instead of clicking this gear icon, I can hold Control down and click it. And that brings up a local management console rather than going through a web portal. So this gives me access to Task Manager, which shows me things that are in progress and pending. I can look at attached backup and see things that are attached. Okay, I can add another local folder through here. I can go to Audit Trace in case there's some issues and we need to do an Audit Trace. I can gather information about the events that have taken place recently just by hitting Query. If I'm looking for specific events, like maybe something to do with polling, I can only show traces containing the word polling, and that will give me only the polling responses. I can also limit the time frame that I want to do a trace for by selecting this and then selecting dates. I can change the maximum traces to show. It's set to 200 right now. I could go to 0, and then if I had a long period of trace information, then I could gather more information. Okay, so if I hit About Acme Systems here, it shows me the version number that I'm currently using, my build number. If I hit Open My Cloud, it basically opens up a web portal so that I can get access to that through a web browser. If I go to my Settings Manager, I can see files that are checked out, offline folders. I can see settings. Under Settings, I have access to a great deal of information. I can control my drive letter, the name, the drive label. And this is a lot of content, so I'm not going to go over all the items here right now. This is just an overview, but just for your information. Cloud drive, sync control, bandwidth control, cache. You can see this. We've got a lot of control over all of this. Notifications, and trace. Here we could set a trace level from 0 to 100 verbose. Sometimes we ask you to set it to 101 if we're doing a specific troubleshooting. And that is pretty much it. So I think I've covered the management console briefly. There's a whole lot more information on this. You can get that information by checking out our documentation online. And we've got our documentation set up at CentreStack.com/documentation, where you see the Quick Start Guide, installation, deployment, administration. You can go to the Windows Client User Guide, which is part of what I'm demonstrating right now. The console is a part of that. So a lot of information for you to gather. Hopefully I've given you a decent overview and you can at least access it and start to look around and see how the settings affect your configuration. I hope that was helpful. And once again, this is Tom Rowe, Product Evangelist for CentreStack, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.